This is the Demystifying Mental Toughness podcast, hosted by David Charlton, and you're listening to this podcast to help you build your own mental toughness, so that you can support other people or your clients better. Either way, you will learn more about developing this plastic personality trait that all but guarantees that you will perform better and lead a more prosperous life. Big welcome to episode 270 of the Demystifying Mental Toughness podcast. And this episode marks the final episode of 2024. And I'm very, very grateful for you, the listener, for taking the time to tune into the podcast episodes. I sincerely hope that you do find them very, very helpful. I'm also very grateful to the guests too who appeared on the show. Without yourselves, the listeners, or the guests, it would be impossible to run a successful podcast. So I'm curious, did you enjoy the festivities? How has 2024 been for you? Are you really up for 2025? Are you looking to attack the new year? Well, normally if we're looking to attack the new year, we'd be told things like, you must write your goals down. You must take action, massive action. You've got to be disciplined. You need to be resilient in the face of challenges. Well, this episode is a little bit different. It doesn't have those motivational messages. But what it has got is 11 excerpts. That's right, 11 segments with different guests from the show from last year and previous years who go on to share some tips so that you can make 2025 a great year. You've got to remember there are 365 days in 2025. So what you're going to hear is a lot of talk about rest and recovery, a lot of talk about looking after yourself. There's going to be messages that relate to nutrition, to sleep, to managing your body, to hydration. There's cold water, the importance of balance, and so much more. Enjoy listening to the helpful messages.
So I suggest figuring out the types of fatigue that they're susceptible to, what makes them tired, and then looking at, again, I go back to that recovery pyramid and say, what are the interventions that you're currently looking at? Is your nutrition on point? Is your sleep on point? Have you got things that you do to manage your body effectively, flexibility, mobility? Are you taking care of those basics? Have you got a program? So I'd look at those first two levels on the recovery pyramid and, understand what type of fatigue you've got, and then are you doing anything to combat that? And then I would, recommend putting together some sort of monitoring over a short period. I'm always surprised at how many athletes don't have a training diary and don't record just very simply how they're feeling from day to day. So, record what they're doing, track what they're doing, and then create almost like a menu and that point system that I talked about before, where you say, right, okay, I'm going to get 5 points from my nutrition. I'm going to get 10 points from my actual recovery interventions, and develop the points each day. This is something I've done with athletes, is each day hit 20 points. And then you can see on days where they maybe got 10 or 15, well, what were the barriers then? So it's really just encouraging athletes to understand fatigue, understand the strategies they can put in place, and then actually reflect on, well, what am I putting in place and how does that then make me feel? So that you can actually drill down into what's effective, rather than just, I'm going to put some compression tights on, eat a protein bar, and I don't know, wear some blue light goggles and that'll make me feel amazing.
Just shut your mouth for the majority of time you're breathing. We weren't designed to breathe through our mouths. That's just a kind of backup option. And so many good things happen when we breathe through our nose that don't happen when we breathe through our mouth. That you can change your health within about 3 weeks of breathing through your nose.
I really do think it's worth remembering that even an elite athlete needs a rest day. They don't train 24/7. Everyone needs a break. Whatever you do, you need a break. And you your body actually needs that break in order to continue to function. So give yourself a bloody break would be one piece of advice. And I know that's easier said than done for an awful lot of people who simply cannot take their foot off the throttle. So take a break, take a rest.
Being a little bit more aware of your thirst and what that looks like for you. If that's like I mentioned, that you've got dry lips all the time, or your urine is darker than anything more than pale yellow, or you've got you're kind of more susceptible to headaches and dry mouth in the morning. All those kind of things can be an indicator that you're dehydrated. So drinking like a large glass of water first thing in the morning, I think that is a key thing that people could do really easily, that will show them what hydration then looks like. And then probably will feel a little bit better with that simple act.
You can definitely 100% achieve a nice switch off from using the cold, and you don't need to go under. I mean, you don't need to go all the way down to 10 degrees and below. Anything from 15 to 10 is actually going to give you a bit of benefit, and it could be just a shower. Turn your shower onto cold and get yourself in there and get it on your legs or your arms. You don't need to be across the top of the head, but that will definitely give you a little bit of a sensation that you might then start thinking, actually, I could get into the water. So the takeaway from that is you can definitely, no matter who you are, you can definitely embrace the cold and get a benefit from it.
We'll start with Mars bars. Mars a day helps you work, rest and play. So some of you might be too young to remember that actually was an advert, but it was an advert for chocolate, Mars a day. And for me, I love, it's muddy feet and rosy cheeks for me. If I'm outdoors stomping around, getting some downtime, that is really, really supportive to me. So I guess what I'm saying is this is about nurturing your well-being. Right? It's something we all need, because if you really are in it for the long haul and you really want to thrive with your goals or with your life, you really, really need to take some time to nurture yourself. There's a lovely you can if you Google 5 steps to well-being, it's a linked to an NHS resource that talks about 5 different things you can do to nurture your well-being. They're very simple things. It's about taking time to learn, taking time to help others, taking time to be active, be in the outdoors, mindfulness. It's the things you might expect, but it's really, really nice. And what I would say to people is take some time. We're very busy in our lives, but please, polyprescription, 30 minutes, 3 times a week, if that's all you can do for yourself, to top yourself up, to make sure you're not depleted.
The importance of balance. It's when I see these extremes that I tend to see the mental health presentation. So, as you referenced earlier, the importance of rest, the importance of recovery days, that's both physically and mentally. So the importance of balance.
Knowing the energy cost of your exercise and eating according to whether or not you've got a high energy cost day or a low energy cost day, and making sure that your food intake marries up with the differences in that.
I think there's an element of not thinking about your own journey and where you've come from. Focus on you, don't focus on other people. And I think that's where it's useful to have a coach or a mentor, whether it's in life or when you're learning a new sport or a new skill. It's somebody who can look at things objectively, that gets away from the emotion and can remind you, well, actually, don't you remember, this is what you were doing a year ago, last week, or whenever it is. And you go, oh, yeah, okay, yeah, I've forgotten about that. Maybe I have come a bit further than I thought. So it's having those two things, because even having the skills I have now, I still work with coaches, whether it's through business and certainly snowboarding. I've had people say to me, well, you can snowboard. Why do you still have lessons? I'm going, well, it's not really a lesson. Would you say to a top tennis player, oh, well, you don't need lessons anymore, So it's that dynamic, and people don't always understand or get that. The other thing is, I think, unless you have a coach, it's easy to get into bad habits. And it can be bad habits, physical bad habits, when you learn, like with snowboarding. And I know what some of my bad habits are. And I need somebody to remind me, pull that leading shoulder over your front edge. And, but equally, we get into habits of thought as well. And that translates then into your performance.
Sunrise, midday, sunset, 4 phases of the day. It's a rolling 24-hour process. So what you start with, which is key, is the anchor point to your day. We don't wake with the sunrise because we live in a seasonal dependent country. So you look at an anchor point to trigger this clock, right? And that is your most consistent wake time, your most consistent start. Me and you would probably pick 5:30, 6 o'clock, 6:30, 7 o'clock. If we took it 8 o'clock, that's like midday to us. A PMer is the other way around. So pick your most consistent anchor point, right? Mine is 6:30. And then chop your day up into 90-minute cycles very quickly. That's how you measure phases of sleep in a clinical world, right? The stages you go through in cycles. 5 90-minute cycles is 7.5 hours. There's your rate, 15 in, 15 out. Chop your day up. In my case, from 6:30, my anchor point is when I start my day. Not wake, start my day, right? That's when the alarm's on. And you will get 16 phases, right? 16 90-minute phases. What that then does is create this lovely, lovely picture in front of you. What are you doing in the first 90 minutes of your day between 6:30 and 8 o'clock, for example? You then understand that the 16th phase of your day, the 16th cycle, is between 5 and 6:30. That's your wake cycle. That's when you're going to wake up, start your day at 6:30 with the alarm on. Then you can look at that dial and go, well, 5 90-minute cycles are between 11 and 6:30. 5 90-minute cycles. So the first cycle between 11 and 12:30, then 12:30 into 2 a.m. is the second cycle, and the third cycle, and the fourth cycle, and the fifth cycle for a 5-cycle 8 hour. Then you can because you've looked at the circadian rhythms, you then know that deep sleep is only revealed between 10 p.m. and 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. We're being specific with the times, but it's that phase, right? Into 12 and the other side. So in there, your brain starts looking, if it's prepared and you've looked after it from the point of wake, it'll start looking for those deep sleep stages. When I can get in your room, 11 and 12:30, it'll look for it again between 12:30 and 2. But anybody who's got a tracker, which we touched on before, you will not see those trackers, whatever they are, rings or they will not tell you that you've had any deep sleep between like 3 and 6:30, because those are the wake cycles. A lot of people who wake at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning and feel wide awake and they can't get back to sleep, that's because that's just going back to your polyphasic, natural multiphasic approach. So suddenly what changes is anchor point, 6:30, chopped it up. 16th cycle between 5 is wake cycle. Then that one is about light sleep, running into that one. The 2 that's going to be the one where my brain can get this deep sleep, which is only 20%, is those 2 cycles there. So whatever I'm doing throughout my day, little CRPs, light in and out, I'm bringing all that to, so when I present myself to sleep at 11 o'clock, my brain takes over. It goes and grabs that deep sleep either in the first cycle or the second cycle. And if it does get some of that, I'm going to feel great. If it doesn't, it's probably because there was things I was doing on the route to that place that it's having to keep adapting and couldn't get it for me. And when you mention parents, in the formative growth years with kids, you're not in control as parents until they get to a certain age when you try manipulating them to do other things. They are being completely controlled by that internal circadian rhythm, that process of going along through that whole thing. So their brain is looking for this thing and generating, because it's about growth. It's about it's about creating that human being. And then suddenly you start to think, well, that's how important sleep was for me to get from 0 to adolescence and then adulthood. That's how important it was. It dominated that period of time. More than food, fuel, and hydration. It completely dominated it, with the brain keeping you down in those deep sleep states. So as you shift, you really start to, it's a big answer to your question, but it is circadian rhythms tapping in your browser. Understand and be more aware of your chronotype. Chop your day up into 90-minute cycles. Create these phases, because then your focus will be totally on what on earth can I do from the point of wake, the anchor point. Doesn't matter how well I've slept. What can I do through those each cycles to give my brain the best opportunity to go and look for that deep sleep in those first 2 cycles of my nocturnal sleep? Because that is the stuff that allows me to grow as a person, to regenerate as a person, both mentally and physically. And if I can't do something to help that, it's a complete waste of time.
With stress, Start trusting your gut and your intuition. And in breathwork, we talk about it as felt sense. Our body is telling us, like literally millions, if not billions, if not trillions of cells in our body are telling us that something is a wrong idea or a bad idea or we shouldn't do it. So listen to it, first of all, because often that's when we get most stressed, when we're not listening to our signals.
There was some fantastic snippets of advice there. I've got to admit, listening back to it was really, really helpful for myself. 2024, well, it's been a really eventful year. I think it's fair to say it's probably been the most challenging year that I've come across since I've ventured into this field 15 years ago. Personally, I've had to deal with legal disputes that don't relate to my work. One of my kids has had some health challenges and then some issues around sport. Personally, I've had some health challenges, and now recently we've decided to rehome our dog due to behavioural issues where we've tried every which way to be able to work through those. And right now we've got an ongoing situation with a close loved one who's been in hospital for over a month and has spent Christmas and the New Year in hospital with some severe health difficulties. So yeah, 2024, I'm pleased to see the back of, if I'm honest. It's been a really taxing year. This podcast episode in particular has been very helpful for me to realise the importance of actually being kind to yourself. If you're going to set yourself goals, if you're going to try and attack 2025, you do need some downtime too. And I've got to admit, I appreciate the gym environment that I go to. So I tend to go to the gym about 3 to 4 times a week. And in there's a spa with a steam room, a sauna, jacuzzi, and some heated beds. And I'm certainly recognising the importance of taking myself off to the spa for an hour or so, once or twice a week. And I'm really feeling the benefits for doing so. After all, 2025, as is life, it's a marathon. It's certainly not a sprint. So timeouts, being able to give yourself the opportunity to step back and to review your approach was certainly in my thoughts. I would like to point you towards Nick Grantham's episode 2. The details are in the show notes there, where Nick shares some fantastic ideas and strategies to be able to reflect and refine your approach to rest and recovery. Here's hoping that you have a fantastic 2025. If you enjoyed this episode of the Demystifying Mental Toughness podcast with David Charlton, do check out my website, sport-excellence.co.uk, and my online sports psychology resources. The Sport-Excellence website has essential resources for anyone looking to build their own mental toughness or the mental toughness of their athletes or teams, or if you want to achieve peak performance more often or optimal functioning. The Sport Excellence website has everything you need to keep moving forward and thrive. So go on, head over to sport-excellence.co.uk to find out more.